President Joe Biden has officially signed the coronavirus relief bill into law. Just recently, the House also voted to pass the amended Senate version of the legislation, and only one Democrat voted against it. So to give you all the details, by a 220 to 211 vote, with no Republicans voting in favor, Democrats handed Biden a crucial first legislative victory. One Democrat joined Republicans in voting against the measure, and that was Representative Jared Golden of Maine, who had cited concerns about the cost and scope of the legislation. So, the House had already voted in favor of passing the amended version of the bill yesterday before we went to air. But I really wanted you to be on the show with us today, Cenk, to talk about it, because you really spearheaded this effort to try to get progressives to fight back, since this amended version of the bill clearly does not include the $15 an hour minimum wage. And there was pressure for the Progressive Caucus to withhold its vote until a $15 an hour minimum wage was included. Obviously, they didn't do that, and clearly they made a political calculation indicating that it's just smarter to vote in favor of this bill because of how overwhelmingly popular it is. Polling indicates that upwards of 70% of voters wanted to pass this version of the bill. So with all of that said, with everything in context, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so first, it's important to be honest and give the full context. So we desperately want a $15 minimum wage in this bill. I'm gonna explain why in a second. But as it turns out, it wasn't. So does that mean the bill is terrible? No, actually the bill is really good in many different areas. And we've talked about this throughout the coverage, and we were honest with you guys throughout the coverage. Some of the compromises are totally unnecessary, like bringing down the size of the checks for the unemployed and for people in general, limiting the checks to less people. Those compromises were bad and unnecessary, but there's wonderful parts of the bill. $20 billion in COVID vaccine manufacturing, $50 billion in testing, $25 billion in rental and utility assistance, $10 billion in mortgage aid, $350 billion in relief to state, local, and tribal governments, $120 billion to K through 12 schools. I mean, on and on. We've told you all about these, and Bernie Sanders is right, for example, when he says that that's actually very progressive. And the size of the bill, which is one of the largest ever in American history, 1.9 trillion, and the fact that it was geared mainly towards average Americans and not business interests, all that is wonderful. But okay, both of these things are true, but they could have, in my opinion, had a real fight over the $15 minimum wage. I don't know that they would have won it exactly this time around, but they certainly would have. One, they would have had a real chance at it, and number two, they certainly would have gotten a lot further in the processing and could help to pass it next time. But it's not in my opinion, it's a fact that they chose not to fight on that. And that's progressives in Congress. So Bernie Sanders was not going to introduce it in the bill at all. And thanks to the pressure that you guys put on, that is no exaggeration, nearly 100% you guys, the Young Turks audience that did that. He introduced an amendment, which was great progress, because that means we got to find out who the 8 Democrats voting against it are. Now we could apply political pressure. If we don't know who they are, we can't put on political pressure. That's why they're constantly hiding and never actually want to hold votes on these progressive policies, because they don't want to get caught with their hand in the corporate cookie jar. So the fact that we pressured them to have that vote was great, and you should be incredibly proud of that. Now, having said that, they could have blocked it in the House. It only would take 6. In fact, since Jared Golden voted against it, it would have only taken 5 progressives in the House to block the bill. When you block the bill, does that mean all these wonderful things wouldn't have happened? No. But is there an actual price? Yes, there is. Now, if they thought far enough ahead, they could have done this without a delay. But asking politicians, including progressives, to think ahead in Congress seems like an unrealistic ask. I'm being harsh, but they've earned that harshness. No. They have no planning at all. They still don't have a plan to pass minimum wage, okay? So, okay, at the late date, it would have delayed the bill a little bit. Okay, that's true. You don't hide around that. These are not black and white issues, okay? So I'm curious what you guys think. That's why we have a poll on it. Would you have delayed the passage of this otherwise really important bill to try to fight for the $15 minimum wage? So go to tyt.com/polls slash fight for 15, or you could just go to slash polls and we have all our polls there. I'm genuinely curious because it's a legitimate opinion to say, no, this is so important. We cannot delay the passage. Folks got to get their unemployment checks, etc. But I think that if they had fought on this ground, they would have had a chance to put the minimum wage in this bill. And they honestly, they just chose not to. And they chose not to delay the bill. They chose not to plan ahead, and they chose to give up on it. Now, Bernie and others would say, and I'm sure the progressives in Congress would say, Cenk, there's nothing we could do. You got the 8 Democratic senators who were going to vote against it. We knew they were going to vote against it. We told you they were going to vote against it. Yes, but I need their names. Otherwise, you're never going to create pressure and you're never going to win. And if we had actually demanded this as part of the negotiation, maybe we would have had a shot. It's a must-pass bill. They can't not pass it. We would have been at the table. Instead, we got honestly nothing on that, other than the thing that the Young Turks audience forced. So I vote that they should have blocked the bill. I'm curious what you guys think. But overall, of course, the media doesn't say it like that at all. They say if Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema block a bill, that's wonderful and strategic and moderate and great. If progressives ever blocked the bill, I'm not unaware that the world would collapse in on them, and the media, complicit in the corporate rule in this country, would blame progressives for everything, right? But
yeah, and Cenk,
all that notwithstanding, they should have actually gotten themselves to the negotiating table. That's my position, Anna.
Yeah, I agree with your position overall. And to be honest with you, part of the reason why I didn't come out, breathing fire on yesterday's show is because at this point, I've just become pretty disillusioned with electoral politics and thinking that there are saviors for us within Congress. No one in Congress is gonna come out to serve our best interests unless we have power behind us. And we might have people overall in a bipartisan way who want a $15 an hour minimum wage. The issue is that those people are not organized. And so if progressive lawmakers sit back and make a calculation, they know that there's a double standard in how the media covers Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema versus how they would cover them if they decided to be the ones who held up that bill over even an incredibly popular provision to increase the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour. So the reason why they made that calculation is because what are we gonna do? If you have unorganized people who are just, maybe for a week straight tweeting mean things to them, that's not really power, just keeping it real, right? So electoral politics is certainly a part of the puzzle in my mind, but the more I study this and the more I look at other models in other countries and what actually works in increasing the minimum wage on a regular basis to not just a living wage, but to something that's actually a little more equitable to what managers or executives would make, you need to have organized unions, organized labor. Every single Nordic country has no federal minimum wage. They don't have the government set the minimum wage for them. They have trade unions, labor unions that literally negotiate on behalf of the workers, which is why they not only get paid far more than Americans get paid for work, but more importantly, they get weeks and weeks and weeks off, paid time off, in order to rest, in order to spend time with their families. Their working conditions are a lot safer, a lot more enjoyable to work in. And people in Nordic countries don't live to work, they work to live. And so I think that we just have this very narrow mindset about, if we just elect the hero, if we just elect our savior, if we just elect the right person, that doesn't go far enough. We can't just get involved in election cycles and then back off and get angry on social media when these lawmakers don't serve our best interests. They don't do it because they don't fear us. And the reason why they don't fear us is because we're not organized.
Yeah, and two really important points to think about going forward. So number one, all Democrats, unfortunately, including progressives in Congress, are always throw up their hands and go, well, there's nothing we can do. No, if you make your case, there's a lot you can do. But it takes yes, I'm gonna use the word courage. I know they get deeply offended. It takes the courage to challenge your own Democratic colleagues. Because here's how you could win. So you force a vote, and then you say, wait a minute, the $15 minimum wage is incredibly popular. Even a majority of Republican voters want it. Incredibly popular, incredibly popular. It's immensely popular in Arizona and West Virginia. Why is Manchin blocking it? Why is Manchin blocking it? In Delaware, it's through the roof popular. Why are the 2 Delaware senators blocking it? But that would require Bernie Sanders, AOC, Ro Khanna, all of them, Jayapal, who's supposed to be the leader of the Progressive Caucus, to call out other Democrats. And they just don't want to. Let's be honest. Let's be honest about it. They don't want to. It's going to create discomfort for them. Now, look, I'll be honest on a second thing with you guys. When we critique them, they get very offended. But
good, who cares?
No, but Anna, but that's
they're supposed to work for us. We're not supposed to work for them. We're not their PR agents. I don't care if they're progressives. I don't care if they're conservatives. I don't care. On any particular issue, if they lack the courage to do the right thing, and more importantly, if they go back on their word of representing our best interests and increasing the federal. I mean, how many Democrats campaigned on increasing the federal minimum wage? Not just progressives, corporate Democrats as well. And then when they don't follow through on their promises and they get critiqued on it, they act as though they're the ones who are aggrieved. No, you're the one who lied to the American people. You're the one who lied to your constituents. And when push came to shove, when they had an opportunity to fight, they didn't do it.
Yeah, look, I don't know that I would go as far as saying that they lied, okay? But I will say this. Look, to finish the point I was making, Anna, if you're a progressive legislator now and you're getting offended by legitimate critique based on facts, well, how does that separate you from the rest of the elite and the rest of the establishment? I remember when we ran those campaigns against establishment candidates with these exact individuals, they didn't seem to mind offending the incumbents we were running against. They didn't mind offending the establishment at that point. They loved it. Now that they're in office, some of them, not all of them, some of them are saying, how dare you offend me? Well, that doesn't really separate you from the rest of the Democrats. It just doesn't. So you could spare your offense. I don't care. I'm with Anna. So like some of them are deeply offended at me. No, I'm offended at you. We worked our asses off. We worked our asses off. You at least owe us a plan. So the last thing is, guys, yes, if we fight and we embarrass people with the wrong positions, that's how politics works, then you can win by pointing out how popular our positions are. If our own people don't dare to point out how popular our positions are and fight for them, well, obviously we have a 0% chance of winning. That is obvious. So we must, you and I together, and I don't mean Anna, I mean you guys out there in the audience. If we continue to put pressure on them in a thoughtful, strategic way, and not in an over-the-top way, not in a burn down the house kind of way, but in a thoughtful, strategic way, then we can create the pressure on them to create pressure on their colleagues. Otherwise, it looks like for the moment being, they're gonna choose the comfortable route. Guys, at a bare minimum, we have every right in the world to demand a plan to pass $15 minimum wage, because no such plan exists right now. I am positive of that. And don't give me loose talk about, oh, maybe one day we'll end the filibuster. Okay, then what's your plan for ending the filibuster? So if they don't have a plan, then they can spare getting offended. They can actually get to work and do the thing that they said they were gonna do. Saying you're in favor of it is not good enough. That's what Joe Biden does. That's what Kamala Harris does. That's what every establishment Democrat does. You must actually pass them. No excuses. If you don't pass them, then yes, it's on you.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.